Once upon a time, in a quiet part of Enugu, there lived a woman named Chinanai. She was the kind of woman people looked up to, not because she was loud or flashy, but because she was kind, calm, and carried herself like someone who had peace in her heart. She worked as a schoolteacher in a nearby primary school. Every morning, she tied her scarf neatly, packed her lesson notes, and walked to class with a gentle smile. Children loved her. Even parents would greet her with respect on the road. She didn't wear makeup, but her beauty was soft and deep, the kind that stayed even when the lights went off. Chinanai had one dream, just one: to marry the man she loved and build a quiet, happy home. Nothing too big, just a little house with flowers at the front, children playing in the backyard, and laughter in the evenings. And for a long time, it seemed like her dream was coming true. His name was Ibuka. Ibuka was tall, light-skinned, and confident. He worked in real estate and always had strong opinions. When he laughed, it filled the room. When he walked into any space, people noticed. He liked to wear clean white kaftans and always smelt like expensive perfume. And when he looked at Chinanai, he always said, "I must have done something right for God to give me you." People loved seeing them together. They fit like rice and stew. One of Chinanai's friends once said during a hangout, even at church, people started calling them the couple that makes others want to marry. Chinanai's younger sister, Amara, was also always around. Amara was the opposite of Chinanai in every way. Loud, playful, always wearing trendy clothes, always on her phone. But she and Chinanai were close, like twins born 2 years apart. "Your man fine, oh," Amara would joke. "If you don't marry him fast, I might steal him." And Chinanai would laugh, not knowing how close to the truth that joke was. Everything changed the day Ibuka proposed. It happened at a restaurant, a very fancy one, with white candles on the table and violin music playing in the background. Chinanai had never eaten in such a place before. She was nervous, barely touching her food, but Ibuka kept smiling. Then, in front of everyone, he knelt down, brought out a small silver box, opened it slowly, and asked, "Will you marry me, Chinanai?" Chinanai covered her mouth, too shocked to speak. Tears filled her eyes, and she nodded. The whole restaurant clapped. Amara, who was secretly filming the moment, screamed and hugged her. It was all over Instagram the next day. Friends called. Neighbors shouted with joy. Her phone kept ringing for hours. That night, after the noise died down, Chinanai sat alone in her room, staring at the ring. It was beautiful, gold with a tiny sparkling diamond. She held it to the light and watched how it danced. She whispered to herself, "I'm getting married." The following weeks were full of planning. Chinanai's mother cried when she saw the invitation card. "My first daughter. Finally," she said, holding her hands tightly. The venue was booked. The caterer was chosen. The bridesmaids' dresses were ordered. Amara was picked as the maid of honor. Everything moved fast. One evening, while Chinanai was arranging guest lists with her friend Ife, Ibuka walked in, wearing a black shirt and jeans. "Baby, you've lost weight," he said, kissing her forehead. "I've been busy," Chinanai smiled. "You're doing too much. I don't want my bride fainting on our wedding day," he teased. Chinanai laughed. "Then you should help me more." Ibuka held her hands. "After the wedding, you won't lift a finger. I'll pamper you every day." Ife giggled from the corner. "God, when?" she whispered under her breath. As they laughed together, Amara came in holding a small cooler. "I brought jollof rice. Nobody should say I don't care." Ibuka stood. "Amara, you know how to make jollof." Amara rolled her eyes. "Please, I've been better than Chinanai since I was 10. They all laughed. It was a warm evening, the kind that made you think life was perfect. But underneath all that laughter, something was hiding. Something dark, something sharp, and it was coming closer every day. Later that night, after everyone left, Chinanai sat on her bed again, still holding her ring. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. "God," she whispered, "please let this be real. Let him truly love me. Let this not be a mistake." The room was quiet. No answer. Only the soft hum of her ceiling fan. The next day, China and I went to the market with Amara. They walked between rows of colorful fabrics, pointing at lace, velvet, and ankara. "This one is too dull," Amara said, dropping a gold fabric. "It's classic," China and I replied. "It's old," Amara said, laughing. "You're not marrying a 70-year-old chief." They bickered and giggled as they moved from one shop to the next. A few market women smiled at them, saying, "Fine girls. Una day shine today." Amara winked. "It's wedding fever." China and I smiled, but inside, she felt something strange, something she couldn't explain, like a quiet warning in her chest. Back at home, while resting on the couch, she asked Amara, "Do you think Ibuka really loves me?" Amara froze for a second, then laughed too loudly. "What kind of question is that? My friend, rest your. You've caught a big fish. Better hold him tight." China and I nodded slowly, but that strange feeling didn't leave her. As days passed, the wedding moved closer. China and I would go to school, teach her children, and return home to wedding tasks. She was tired, but she was also excited. Then one evening something happened. Something small, but it changed everything. Ibuka came over to pick China and I for a pre-marriage counseling class. He knocked and waited outside, scrolling on his phone. Amara rushed out before China and I, carrying a shawl. "Take it," she said to Ibuka. "It's cold. Don't let your fine body catch flu." China and I was still putting on her shoes inside, but when she came out, she noticed something strange. Ibuka's face, the way he looked at Amara. It was just a second, flash, but she saw it, and she never forgot it. That night, while lying in bed, she kept seeing that look. It wasn't the normal friendly smile. It was something else. She tried to shake it off. "I'm overthinking," she told herself. "They've known each other for long. Maybe that's just how they play." But the thought refused to leave. Still, she said nothing. She didn't want to spoil things. The wedding was only 3 weeks away. She had waited too long to let fear ruin her joy. So she kept planning. She kept smiling. And she kept trusting. At least she tried to. Because even though everything looked perfect, something was broken. And it had already started to rot from the inside. The sun rose gently over Enugu, casting a warm light through the curtain in China and I's room. She opened her eyes slowly and stared at the ceiling. The strange feeling from the day before was still sitting inside her chest. She turned her head and looked at the calendar on her wall. 14 days to the wedding. Everything was set. The dresses, the venue, the cake. Guests had already started arriving from other states. Her mother had even called her 3 times last night, reminding her to rest and take her vitamins. But China and I didn't feel like a bride anymore. She felt like someone waiting for something bad to happen. She stood up, dragged herself to the bathroom, brushed her teeth, and washed her face. As she came out, she heard Amara laughing from the living room. "Hello, boo. Don't miss me too much, oh." Amara was saying on the phone, her voice playful. China and I paused. Amara's room was next to hers. The door was slightly open. Her sister was lying on her bed, one hand holding her pink iPhone, the other flipping her hair as she spoke into the phone. "No now. She's still inside." Amara giggled. "Relax. I'll come later." China and I took a step back quietly. That voice, so soft, so sweet. It was the voice Amara only used when she was flirting. And something about it made China and I's stomach twist. Later that day, they were supposed to go over the guest list again. But before that, China and I needed to call the decorator to confirm the flower arrangements. She couldn't find her phone. "Amara," she called out from the kitchen. "Can I use your phone for 1 second? I can't find mine." "Yeah, sure. It's on my bed," Amara replied from the backyard where she was hanging clothes. China and I walked into Amara's room. The pink iPhone lay on the bed, unlocked. As she picked it up, a message notification popped up. It was from E. China and I blinked. The message read, "I can't stop thinking about last night. I miss your mouth." Her hand shook. She opened the chat thread. And there it was. Ibuka, his full name. his profile picture, his number, the same Ibuka she was about to marry. Chinanai dropped the phone as if it burned her hand. She sat on the edge of the bed, heart beating so fast she felt dizzy. She picked the phone again, this time going deeper. The messages stretched back weeks. Some were romantic, some were disturbing. All were filled with clear signs that they were having an affair. Pictures, videos, voice notes, and then a text from a few days ago. "Baby, after the wedding we'll still find a way. You're the one I want." Tears rolled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Her body started shaking. Her lips moved, but no words came out. How? Why? With Amara? Her sister? She quickly forwarded the messages and screenshots to her own phone. Then, without thinking, she dropped the phone back where she found it and left the room. Amara walked in minutes later, singing as she entered. "Did you call the decorator?" Chinanai nodded without looking up. "Yes, thanks." Amara smiled and walked past her, not knowing that the whole truth had already been uncovered. That night, Chinanai couldn't sleep. She sat in the dark, holding her phone like it was a knife in her chest. Her chest rose and fell. Her eyes were red. She didn't cry loud. She just sat quietly and let the tears fall. She stared at the screenshots again. The one where Amara was in a red towel, smiling at the camera. The one where Ibuka said, "Let her go. She's too boring for you." The one where Amara replied, "She'll cry, but she'll get over it. I'm the one who makes you happy." Chinanai squeezed the phone tight. Her hands were cold. Her heart felt like it was falling inside a deep hole. She remembered when she and Amara were little girls. They would sleep on the same mattress, tell each other secrets, and whisper about boys they liked. How did it come to this? And Ibuka? The man who prayed with her, who knelt down and proposed in public, who held her mother's hand and called her Mama. He was lying the whole time. The next morning, Chinanai stood in front of her mirror, staring at herself. She touched the engagement ring on her finger. It still sparkled, but it felt heavy now. She took it off slowly and placed it on the table. Later that day, Ibuka called. "Hey, baby." His voice was soft. "How are you this morning?" "I'm fine," Chinanai replied, trying to sound normal. "You didn't text me all night. I missed you." She paused. "I slept early. I wanted to see you today," he said. "Can I take you out this evening? Just the two of us." "Okay," she replied. "What time?" 6 p.m. "I'll come pick you up." After the call, Chinanai sat down quietly. She needed to see his face. She needed to look him in the eyes and see if he would lie to her again. At 6 p.m. sharp, Ibuka drove in. He was wearing a black kaftan, looking fresh and confident. He stepped out of the car and opened the door for her. "You look tired," he said. "Too much wedding stress?" Chinanai nodded. They went to a quiet restaurant. He held her hand as they sat. "So," he said with a smile, "in 2 weeks you'll be my wife. I still can't believe it." Chinanai looked at him, really looked. His eyes, his smile, his hands. Everything looked the same, but she now saw it all differently. "How are you really feeling about the wedding?" she asked softly. "I'm happy," he said. "Are you not?" She looked down at her drink. "Do you feel ready?" she asked again. He chuckled. "I've been ready since I met you." Chinanai looked up slowly. "No doubts? No second thoughts?" she asked. Ibuka leaned closer. "Why are you asking me this? Is something wrong?" She paused. "No, I just wanted to be sure." He touched her hand. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're the one I want to build a life with." His words stabbed her. He was lying. So easily. Chinanai smiled faintly. That night, she said very little as he drove her back. When he dropped her off, he kissed her forehead. "I love you." She nodded and walked inside. She didn't say it back. When she entered her room, she shut the door and locked it. Then she sat on the floor and cried until her throat hurt. The next day, she got a call from her aunt who lived in ABA. "Chinanai, I'm coming early for your wedding. My husband too. I already bought wrapper." Chinanai smiled. "Thank you, Auntie." Everyone was excited. Everyone was planning, but no one knew the truth. No one knew what was coming. She wanted to tell her mother. She wanted to scream and shout and burn the whole wedding down. But something held her back. That night, as she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling again, a new thought entered her heart. Not pain, not tears, something else. Plan. If she exposed them now, people would call her dramatic. Her parents would cry. Guests would cancel. She would look like the bad one. But if she waited, if she played her part, if she smiled, danced and said, yes, then revealed everything when the world was watching, that would be the real revenge. She sat up slowly. Her face was calm now. The tears had dried. The pain was still there, but it was no longer controlling her. It was now her weapon. She picked up her phone and opened the album of screenshots again. She renamed the folder Wedding Gift. Then she turned off the light and went to sleep. For the first time in days, she smiled. The days moved fast, but for China and I, everything felt slow. The wedding was just 10 days away, but she was no longer counting down with joy. She was counting down with purpose. Every smile she gave, every hug she returned, was part of her plan. Nobody knew what was coming. Not her mother, not her sister, and definitely not Ibuka. That morning, the sun was bright. The neighborhood was buzzing with weekend sounds. Children playing, music playing from speakers, neighbors frying akara. China and I sat in front of the mirror, brushing her hair slowly. Her phone buzzed. It was Ibuka. Good morning, baby. I'm traveling to Nsuka for a quick meeting. Just a day trip. I'll be back before night. I'll call you when I land. China and I stared at the message. She replied, safe trip. That was all. No heart emoji. No, I love you too. She dropped the phone and stood up. Then Amara entered the room. Your husband sent me fuel money, she said, grinning and waving her phone. I guess he wants me to glow for the wedding. China and I looked at her in the mirror. Really? Yes-o. Amara laughed. You think it's easy to slay on your wedding day? I have to represent. China and I forced a small smile. Make sure you represent well. Amara flopped on the bed and scrolled through her phone. I'm even thinking of changing my hair. I want a long bone-straight wig this time. China and I turned to face her. Where did you two go last week? That evening I was sleeping and didn't see you both till late. Amara froze for half a second, then looked up. Ah, that day? We just went to get suya. Why? China and I looked into her sister's eyes. No reason, she said quietly. Amara smiled quickly. Are you jealous? Don't worry. After the wedding, you can own him fully. China and I said nothing. She just picked up her earrings and walked out of the room. Her heart felt heavy again. Still hurt. Every word, every lie, every moment Amara acted like nothing was wrong. But the pain was her fuel now, and she would hold it in until the perfect moment. By evening, the house was full. Her cousins from Onitsha had arrived. Her mother was cooking and laughing. Her father was in the living room arranging drinks. Everyone was happy. Everyone was planning. China and I smiled and served drinks. Then, around 7 p.m., her phone rang. It was Ibuka's friend, Keen. She picked it up. Hello, Keen. His voice was shaking. China and I, are you home? Yes. Why? There was silence. Then he said it. Ibuka had an accident. China and I stood up slowly. What did you say? Keen's voice broke. On his way back from Nsuka, trailer lost control. Hit his car. They just rushed him to Enugu General Hospital. Her hands started shaking. Her chest felt like it was closing in. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Come, please come, Keen said. He's asking for you. China and I dropped the phone and grabbed her bag. Where are you going? Her mother asked, frowning. To the hospital, she said, almost breathless. Ibuka was in an accident. Screams filled the house. What? Jesus! God forbid! Is he alive? But China and I didn't wait to answer. She ran outside, got a kiki, and headed straight to the hospital. When she arrived, the air was cold. Too cold. Doctors were running back and forth. Nurses were whispering. She found Keen standing near the emergency room. His shirt was stained with blood. Chinanai's legs almost gave out. "Keen," she said, holding his arm. "Where is he?" Keen couldn't look her in the eye. "He's alive," he whispered. "But they said he might never walk again." Chinanai's heart stopped. She walked slowly to the door and looked inside. Ibuka was on the hospital bed. His face was swollen. His arm was in a cast. His leg was wrapped in bandages. Machines beeped around him. He looked so small, so helpless. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. "Chi Nanai," he whispered. She walked to his side. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She held his hand and said, "I'm here." He squeezed her hand weakly. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry." She looked at him. "Don't talk. Rest." But in her heart, her mind was screaming. Sorry for what? The accident? Or the cheating? Doctors came in, asking her to wait outside. She stepped back, left the room, and sat in the hallway. Her hands were still shaking. She didn't know what to feel. Yes, he betrayed her. Yes, he broke her heart. But now he was broken too. A nurse walked by. "Are you the fiancé?" Chinanai nodded slowly. "He's lucky to be alive," the nurse said. "It was bad. The fact that he survived is a miracle." Chinanai closed her eyes. Was it? She stayed at the hospital till midnight. Amara came later, crying like a widow. "My baby!" she shouted. "Jesus! Why him?" She ran into the room. Chinanai watched her closely, but this time she wasn't angry. She wasn't jealous. She was just tired. Very, very tired. The next morning, Ibuka's mother arrived. She hugged Chinanai and cried, "My daughter! Thank you for being here. Thank you." Chinanai nodded. "He needs all of us now." That evening, the doctor called a meeting. They explained that the spinal injury was serious. "He won't walk again," the doctor said. "We've done our best." The words hit the room like a bomb. Ibuka broke down in tears. His mother screamed. Chinanai stood there, frozen. The man she was supposed to marry would now live in a wheelchair. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. Then she walked to him, knelt by his bed, and held his hand. "I'm still here," she whispered. He looked at her with broken eyes. "Why? I don't deserve you." She looked at him for a long time. "I made a promise," she said, "and I'm not going anywhere." But inside her heart, the war began. She didn't know what was real anymore. Did she mean what she said? Was it pity? Was it revenge? Was it love? Everything was tangled. But one thing was clear. She would not leave. Not yet. 2 days later, they discharged Ibuka. The wedding was now 6 days away. He couldn't walk, but he begged Chinanai to go on with the wedding. "I can't lose you too," he said. "Please." Chinanai looked at him. "You won't," she said softly. His eyes filled with tears. "You're an angel." But she wasn't. Not anymore. She was a woman who had been lied to, used, and betrayed. And she was about to show the world who Ibuka really was. Amara kept coming around. She would touch his head, rub his shoulders, and speak softly. "You need to eat more. You're losing weight," she told him one day, placing soup on the table. Chinanai watched them closely. Amara acted like she had no guilt. Ibuka acted like nothing ever happened. They both smiled, joked, and planned for the wedding like it was normal. But they didn't know. Chinanai had everything. The pictures, the messages, the proof. She had it all. And she had a plan. She would go through with the wedding. She would walk into that hall in her white gown. She would stand beside him. She would hold his hand. And when the time was right, she would destroy them both. Not with anger, not with noise, but with truth. The kind that could not be hidden. The kind that would echo forever. The sound of wedding drums filled the compound. Decorators tied pink and gold ribbons to chairs. Canopies stood tall across the yard. 2 cows had been slaughtered behind the house. Chinanai's mother was busy organizing coolers, while neighbors helped carry in bags of rice and cartons of drinks. The house was full, so full, but China had never felt more alone. It was 3 days to the wedding. She stood by the window of her room, looking out at the noisy compound. Children ran around laughing. Women danced with cooking spoons in hand. Aunties shouted over each other. Someone was already testing the microphone. It was the celebration everyone had prayed for. The bride who stayed with her crippled fiancé. The woman who didn't run away when life got hard. People called her gold. Angel in human form. Real wife material. Even the church posted her photo on their Facebook page with the caption, "When love stands strong." China-Nai's face was everywhere. Smiling, quiet, peaceful. But inside something else lived. Not peace, not love. Something sharper, something stronger. She didn't talk much. She just kept helping. She carried food. She served guests. She laughed when others laughed. She knelt when elders gave prayers. But each smile she gave was carefully controlled. Each word she said was measured. Even when Amara walked into the room with her new wig, twirling like a beauty queen, China only nodded. "You like it?" Amara asked, flipping the long straight hair. "It's nice," China replied. Amara smiled. "Ibuka said it looks good on me." China paused for 1 second. "He said that?" she asked softly. "Yes," Amara laughed. "Even from his wheelchair he still has sharp eyes." China said nothing. She picked up her gown from the bed and began folding it gently. Amara flopped onto the chair beside her. "You're really a good woman, you know?" she said. "Many girls would have left by now, but you stayed." China looked at her carefully. "Would you have stayed if it were you?" Amara blinked, surprised. "Me?" China nodded. "I don't know," Amara said, sitting up straighter. "I mean, it depends. But you two are meant to be." China smiled slightly. "Yes, meant to be." Amara laughed nervously and stood up. "Anyway, I'm going to get my nails done. I'll be back before dinner." As Amara walked out, China stared at the back of her head. The same head that had once rested on Ibuka's chest in a hotel bed. The same hand that had once touched his face like it belonged there. She breathed slowly. 1, 2, 3. "Let it go for now," she whispered to herself. "Just a little longer." That evening, Ibuka's mother visited. She brought food, gifts, and a big Bible. "Let's pray, my daughter," she said, placing the Bible on China-Nai's lap. China-Nai nodded and knelt down. The older woman placed her hands on China-Nai's head and began to speak softly. "Father, bless this girl. Bless her womb. Bless her days. Let her never lack." China-Nai closed her eyes. Tears gathered under her eyelids, but she didn't let them fall. After the prayer, the woman hugged her tightly. "You are not just a bride," she said. "You are mercy in human form." China forced a smile. "Thank you, Mama. You've shown my son more love than anyone else," the woman continued. "You've stayed even when others would have run. God will reward you." China nodded. "Yes, he will." Later that night, China visited Ibuka in his room. He was lying on the bed, his wheelchair beside him. His legs were bandaged, and he had a pillow under his back. His smile lit up when he saw her. "My wife," he said softly. "Come." She walked in slowly and sat on the edge of the bed. He took her hand. "You don't know how much I thank God for you every day," he said. "I thought I'd lose everything after the accident. But I didn't lose you." She looked into his eyes. "Why did you think you'd lose me?" she asked. He blinked. "Because I was broken." She said nothing. He looked down. "I know I don't deserve you," he whispered, "but I'll spend my life making it up to you. Please don't ever leave me." She touched his cheek gently. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. He kissed her hand. "I promise," he said. "No more mistakes. I've made many, but I'll be better now." She nodded. "You should rest." He leaned back, still holding her hand. "I don't know how I got so lucky," he said. And still, he never confessed. He never told the truth. He never once said Amara's name. China stood and left the room quietly. When she entered her room, she locked the door behind her. She pulled out her phone, opened the folder. The pictures were still there. The texts, the videos. She watched one of them again. Ibuka laughing, Amara touching his chest, both of them lying side by side. And just above the video, a message that read, "It's just for now. I'll still choose you, Amara." China-Nai's fingers gripped the phone tightly. She stared at the screen until the battery died. 2 days to the wedding. The final fittings were done. Her gown hung behind the door, clean and white. The bridesmaids had all arrived. The compound was louder now. More cooking, more music, more visitors. But inside, China-Nai felt quiet, cold, still. Her mother walked into her room and touched her shoulder. "My daughter," she said, "you're about to enter your husband's house. Forget all the things of the past." China-Nai looked at her. "What if the past isn't really past?" she asked. Her mother paused. "What do you mean?" she asked gently. China-Nai smiled faintly. "Nothing." Her mother laughed. "You're just nervous. It's normal." She kissed her forehead and walked out. China-Nai turned and faced the mirror. She stared at herself. "You're ready," she whispered. "You've waited long enough." One day to the wedding. It was the traditional marriage day. Men danced in front of the compound with talking drums. Palm wine flowed from jug to jug. People wore wrappers and head ties in gold and purple. Ibuka's people came with yam, goat meat, and drinks. Her father welcomed them with a loud voice. Everything looked perfect. China-Nai sat beside her aunties, smiling when needed, kneeling when called. Amara danced around the compound, laughing loudly, showing off her dress. "She's a fine maid of honor," people said. But one woman looked closely at her and whispered, "Too fine for comfort." China-Nai heard it, but she didn't speak. She only smiled and drank her malt slowly. That night, after everyone had gone, she sat alone in her room. The white gown was ready. The rings were ready. The guests were ready. Only one thing left, the reveal. She picked up her phone, connected it to her laptop, and opened the folder again. Then she clicked, "Select all," and clicked, "Create slideshow." As the pictures rolled on her screen, soft music playing in the background, China-Nai's face stayed blank. She whispered to herself, "Tomorrow they will all see you." The morning sun rose slowly over the village. Birds chirped softly. The breeze was cool. Everything felt calm. Too calm. But inside the house, nothing was calm. People moved up and down. The compound was full. Cars were lined outside. Relatives from all over the country had arrived. The canopy outside was already decorated in pink and white. Flowers, bows, chairs. Everywhere looked like a dream. Today was the day. China-Nai sat quietly in her room, her white wedding gown laid out on the bed. Her makeup artist was already setting up. Her aunt was ironing her veil. The smell of perfume and body powder filled the room. But China-Nai wasn't smiling. She was quiet, still. Her mind was on one thing, the slideshow. She had stored it safely on a flash drive. The same flash drive she had slipped into her purse last night. It was now hidden inside a secret pocket of her dress. Everything was ready. The only thing left was time. Her mother entered the room with tears in her eyes. "My daughter," she whispered, "you look like an angel." China-Nai turned to face her. "Thank you, Mama. I prayed last night," her mother continued. "I told God to bless your home, to give you peace, and to keep you and Ibuka strong. You're a blessing to this family." China-Nai nodded slowly. "I'll never forget everything you've done." Her mother smiled, not knowing the meaning behind those words. Then the music outside changed. The band had arrived. Someone shouted, "Time to dress the bride." Her bridesmaids rushed in, laughing and dancing. Amara came in last, wearing a tight pink dress with shining beads. Her hair was laid flat and perfect. She walked straight to China-Nai, picked up the white gown and said, "Let's make you the most beautiful bride this village has ever seen." China-Nai looked at her sister, looked at her deep. Amara didn't blink. She smiled. You ready? China stood slowly. Yes, she said. I'm ready. 30 minutes later, the crowd at the church had grown. Guests filled the hall. Photographers were snapping nonstop. Ibuka sat at the front, dressed in a white suit, sitting in his custom wheelchair. His legs were covered with gold cloth. His face was calm, but his hands kept shaking slightly. His best man stood beside him, whispering words of comfort. She's coming, the man said. You're blessed, my brother. Just relax. Ibuka nodded, eyes fixed on the door. The choir began singing softly. Then, the doors opened. Everyone turned. Gasps filled the room. China stood at the entrance, glowing in her white gown, veil covering her face, bouquet in her hand. Her steps were slow, elegant, like a queen. She walked past each row as guests smiled, clapped, and whispered blessings. She's too beautiful. God bless this couple. She's an example to every woman. But they didn't know. They didn't see the storm behind her smile. She got to the altar and stood beside Ibuka. He looked up at her. His eyes were red. Thank you, he whispered. China didn't answer. She just held his hand gently. The priest stepped forward. We are gathered here today, he began, to witness a love that has overcome pain, trials, and deep challenges. Many left, but this woman stayed. That is love. The crowd clapped. China stayed still. The priest continued. Before we begin, the bride has asked for a few minutes to speak. Gasps again. The priest turned to her. Do you wish to say something now? China nodded. Yes, father. Just a short word. She stepped forward, turned to face the crowd, and took the microphone. Amara sat in the front row, smiling brightly. Ibuka looked nervous. The hall went quiet. China voice was soft but clear. Good morning, everyone, she said. I thank you all for coming here today to witness my wedding. This day is special, and I have a gift for my husband. Everyone smiled. Amara smiled wider. Even Ibuka relaxed a little. China turned to the media team at the back. Please play the video. The hall paused. The technician frowned, confused. I thought we were only playing music. It's already inside the flash drive I gave you, China said. Just play it. The technician nodded and clicked play. The projector screen behind the altar came alive. First, a soft piano tune began. Then pictures started to roll. The first one showed Ibuka and Amara sitting on a bed. The room went silent. The next image showed a message. I can't wait to touch you again. She doesn't have what you have. Then more pictures. More texts. A video. Ibuka shirtless. Amara in a towel, laughing. Then her voice. She'll cry, oh, but she'll get over it. Screams filled the room. Chairs shifted. People stood. Amara jumped to her feet. Stop it. Stop it now. Ibuka covered his face with both hands. Oh my God. The priest stepped back, shocked. Guests turned and stared at Amara. Is that not her? Jesus. She slept with her sister's husband-to-be? China stood calmly. She turned back to face the hall. I found out 2 weeks ago, she said. I kept quiet. I didn't shout. I didn't cancel. I wanted the truth to show itself. And today, you've all seen it. She placed the microphone down gently. Then she turned to Ibuka. I did love you, she whispered. But you broke me. She looked at Amara. My own sister. Amara was frozen. Her mouth opened but no words came out. China pulled off her veil slowly and handed her bouquet to a bridesmaid. Then she turned to the crowd one last time. I will not marry a man who betrayed me. I will not share a house with a woman who stabbed me. Today is not a wedding. It is a funeral. I am burying every lie I ever believed. Then she stepped down from the altar. Her heels echoed through the church. The guests parted as she walked past them. Some covered their mouths. Some watched her with tears. Some clapped. She walked through the open door into the bright sun, her gown flowing behind her. Free. The church was no longer calm. The once happy wedding hall had become a battlefield of whispers, stares, and confusion. Chinanai's footsteps echoed in people's ears long after she left. Her words, sharp, calm, full of truth, still hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Ibuka remained frozen at the altar, his face pale, his head bowed. The projector screen was still lit, stuck on the last image from the slideshow. It showed him and Amara in a hotel room, smiling at the camera, half-dressed. The priest slowly stepped away from the pulpit. Some guests stood, others sat. No one knew what to do. The microphone Chinanai had dropped still lay on the ground. Its soft hum filled the silence. Then, finally, a voice from the front row. Amara, is it true? It was their mother. Her voice was shaky, but her eyes were sharp. Amara didn't answer. She stood stiff like a statue, her makeup now mixed with sweat. Her hands shook. Her legs couldn't move. Their mother stood up slowly. Amara, she said louder. Is it true? Mama, please. Amara finally spoke, her voice low. Tell me now, her mother screamed, walking toward her. Did you sleep with your sister's fiancé? Amara opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The whole church turned to her. All eyes, all anger, all disbelief. Then a loud slap landed across Amara's face. The church gasped. Her mother had slapped her so hard that Amara stumbled backward. You disgrace, the woman shouted. Your own sister, your own blood. Amara held her cheek, eyes wide. Ibuka tried to raise his hand weakly. Please, enough. But no one listened. Ibuka's mother was crying beside him. She kept shaking her head and mumbling, This can't be. This can't be. The guests began to murmur louder. That's her? That's the sister. Jesus. What kind of heart is that? How can a woman betray her own blood? Some guests started leaving. Some took out their phones and began typing. The scandal was no longer private. It was now public. Someone had recorded the whole thing. The video of Chinanai's speech. The slideshow. The shock. It was already being shared across phones and WhatsApp groups. Within minutes, the title appeared. Bride exposes cheating groom and her own sister at the altar. Outside the church, Chinanai walked toward the road, her steps firm. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just kept walking. People tried to call her. Chinanai, wait, come back. But she didn't turn around. Her white gown swept the dust behind her. Cars honked as she crossed the road. A Kiki man parked beside her. Auntie, you need ride? She nodded. Take me home. Back at the family house, her mother's compound was still full of guests who had not made it to the church yet. They were eating, drinking, laughing. Then someone's phone rang. Then another. Then another. And slowly, one by one, they all saw it. The video. Gasps echoed across the yard. Plates dropped. Cups spilled. Then someone shouted, They've canceled the wedding. She exposed them. Aunties rushed inside. Uncles stood still. The whole place turned upside down. The Kiki stopped in front of the house. Chinanai stepped out quietly. People stared at her like they'd seen a ghost. Her gown was still clean. Her makeup still fresh. She walked into the house. Inside, her father stood in the parlor, his face red with anger. Her mother was crying on the couch. Aunties surrounded her with questions. What happened? Is it true? Where is Amara? Chinanai stood at the door. They turned to her. Is it true? One auntie asked. She didn't answer. She walked past them and went to her room. She locked the door behind her. Then she sat on the floor. Finally, she let the tears come. Not loud tears, not wild ones, just slow, heavy ones that refused to stop. The kind of tears that don't fall from the eyes alone, but from the soul. She sat there, crying into her hands. Not because of the wedding, not because of Ibuka, but because her own sister, her own blood, had looked her in the eye and smiled through the lie. The pain was too deep, too sharp, too personal. Back at the church, Ibuka's friends had helped him into a car. He said no word the whole time. His face was blank. His body felt weak. His hands trembled. When he got to his parents' house, he locked himself in his room. His mother knocked on the door. "My son, open, please. Let us talk." No reply. Inside, Ibuka stared at the wall, eyes dry. He had ruined everything. His future, his name, his chance. His shame was too big to carry. Amara didn't go home. She had run out of the church and disappeared into the streets. No one knew where she went. Her phone was off. Her bag was left behind. Only her dress and wig remained with her. She walked far barefoot through the streets of Enugu. People who recognized her whispered, pointed, took pictures. By evening, she reached a friend's house and begged for a place to sleep. But by then, everyone already knew. Her name was trending online. Her face was everywhere. Sister who slept with groom. The next morning, Chinanai woke up late. Her head hurt. Her body felt like it had been beaten. She sat up slowly, still in her wedding dress. She had fallen asleep on the floor. Her mother knocked on the door. "Chinanai, can I come in?" She said nothing. The door opened. Her mother entered with a bowl of warm water and a towel. She didn't speak. She just knelt beside her daughter and cleaned her face gently. Chinanai didn't move. "I'm sorry," her mother whispered. "I didn't know." Chinanai looked at her, tears returning. "I trusted her," she said softly. "I know. I gave her everything. I know. I didn't deserve this." "No, you didn't." They held each other quietly. No more words, just pain, shared pain. That afternoon, a car drove into the compound. Ibuka's mother stepped out, holding a bag. She knocked on the door. Chinanai opened it slowly. The woman looked at her with red eyes. "My daughter, please. I came to say sorry." Chinanai didn't answer. "I raised him wrong," she said. "I covered too many of his mistakes. I didn't teach him what true love means." Chinanai looked down. "I prayed for a wife like you," she continued. "But my son threw you away." Chinanai said quietly. "He never once confessed." The woman nodded. "I know." She handed the bag over. "Please take this, not as a bride, but as my daughter." Inside the bag were her bride price items, her wedding ring, and a small envelope of money. Chinanai took the bag and nodded once. "Thank you for coming," she said. The woman turned and walked back to her car. 2 days later, the video had crossed Nigeria. YouTubers were making commentary. Radio stations were talking about it. People debated online. Some called Chinanai the bravest woman alive. Some blamed her for waiting till the wedding. Some called her a hero. But one thing was clear. The truth was out, and it couldn't be taken back. Back in her room, Chinanai sat beside her window. The wedding gown now hung in the corner, still white but never worn in joy. She held a pen in her hand and a sheet of paper. She began to write, not to Ibuka, not to Amara, but to herself. "Dear me, you were brave. You loved deeply. You trusted too much. But you didn't break. You walked out when others would have stayed. You told the truth even when it hurt. You chose peace. Now heal." She folded the paper and placed it under her pillow. Then she looked out of the window again. The wind blew gently across her face. And for the first time in many weeks, she closed her eyes and smiled. The village was no longer buzzing with wedding songs. The drums had gone quiet. The guests had all returned home. The decorations were pulled down and packed away. Only silence remained. But inside that silence, people were still talking. They talked in markets. They talked in shops. They talked on buses. They talked in whispers. And sometimes in loud laughter. And every time they talked, 2 names kept coming up. Chinanai, Amara. 3 days had passed since the wedding that never happened. Chinanai sat outside her room, holding a broom in her hand, slowly sweeping the front yard. She was not really cleaning. She just needed to do something. Her eyes were tired. Her heart was still heavy, but her face looked stronger. She hadn't cried since that last night. She hadn't spoken to anyone about what happened, not even Amara, because Amara had not returned. Chinanai's mother came out, tying her scarf tighter. She looked at her daughter quietly, then sat on the wooden bench beside her. They called from the church, her mother said softly. They said the priest wants to meet with you. China didn't look up. What for? They said he just wants to talk. Pray. Check on you. China nodded. I'll go tomorrow. Her mother hesitated, then said, I still haven't seen Amara. China paused her sweeping. Her mother continued, Nobody knows where she is. I've called all her friends. China stood straight. She's hiding. That's what people do when they're guilty. Her mother sighed. She's still your sister. China looked at her. No, she was my sister. She made her choice. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Amara sat on a cold floor in her friend Ifyinanya's apartment. Her hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. She just stared at her phone screen, watching the same video over and over. The video of China standing at the altar, calm, sharp, unshaken. Then the pictures. Then the silence that followed. Then the crowd turning on her. She covered her face with both hands. Ifyinanya entered the room with a plate of rice. Please eat something, she begged. Amara shook her head. I can't. You've been like this for days. I can't face anyone, Amara whispered. They hate me. Ifyinanya sat beside her. You made a mistake, but hiding won't fix it. Amara looked at her. It wasn't a mistake. It was wickedness. I don't even know why I did it. I just kept doing it. Ifyinanya didn't speak. Amara dropped the phone beside her. They'll never forgive me, she said. Back at Ibuka's house, the air was still tense. His mother walked around the house with a Bible, praying aloud every morning. Father, have mercy. Let shame not kill my son. Ibuka hadn't left his room. He barely ate. He refused to speak to visitors. When his father tried to talk to him, he said only 3 words. I ruined everything. His business partners had already called to ask about the video. One of them canceled a deal. Another said, clean your name before we work again. His image was damaged. His pride was broken. And worst of all, he had lost the one woman who truly loved him. One evening, Ibuka's mother knocked softly on his door. My son, please come out, she said. No answer. Just sit outside for a while. Feel fresh air. Silence. Then, slowly, the door creaked open. Ibuka rolled himself out in the wheelchair, his face tired, his eyes swollen. He stopped beside her. She placed a stool beside him and sat. They looked at the sky in silence. Have you prayed? She asked. He shook his head. Try. Even if it's just one word. He looked away. What's the point? She reached into her wrapper and brought out a small photo. It was a picture of China, smiling in a blue dress, taken during one of their visits. I still believe you can say sorry. From your heart. Ibuka took the photo and held it tightly. The next morning, China went to the church. She wore a simple gown and flat slippers. No makeup, no earrings, just herself. The priest welcomed her kindly. My daughter, he said. You were strong that day, but are you okay now? China nodded. I'm trying. He poured her a cup of water. They sat quietly for a while. Then he said, many people are talking. Some say you were too bold. Some say you should have forgiven. China looked at him. If I married him, I would have been marrying pain. He nodded. She continued, I wanted to scream when I found out, but I stayed calm. I wanted the truth to speak for itself. It did, the priest said. China breathed out. I just want peace now. You will find it, he said. But forgive, even if you don't go back. Forgive for your own heart. She looked down at her hands. I don't know if I can. Start slowly, he said. Even a small prayer counts. That same afternoon, Ibuka's driver arrived at China-Nai's gate with a small brown envelope. He knocked on the door. Her mother opened. Good afternoon, Ma, he greeted. I came to give her this. She collected the envelope and walked to China-Nai's room. It's from Ibuka, she said. China-Nai looked at the envelope but didn't open it right away. She stared at it for a long time. Finally, she tore it open. Inside was a handwritten letter. China-Nai, I have no right to ask for your time, but I must speak. What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed your trust. I destroyed what we had. The accident taught me that life can change in 1 second. But the wedding day showed me that truth always wins. I watched you walk away, and I knew I would never deserve you again. I am not asking for your love. I only ask for your forgiveness. If you never speak to me again, I will understand. But if you ever decide to look back, I will be here, waiting. Ibuka. China folded the letter slowly and placed it in her drawer. That evening, she took a walk to her childhood playground. She sat on a swing alone. Children were playing around her, but her mind was far away. Then she heard a voice. China. She turned. It was her father. He walked slowly toward her and sat on the next swing. They didn't speak for a while. Then he said, "When you were 5, I brought you here every Saturday. You used to laugh so loudly." China smiled a little. "I never thought I'd see the day you'd be this broken," he said. "I'll heal," she said quietly. He looked at her. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You showed the world that silence is not weakness, that truth needs no noise." China looked at him with teary eyes. "Thank you, Papa." He reached for her hand and held it gently. "You'll love again. I know you will." Meanwhile, Amara finally left her friend's house. She called home. Her mother answered. "Mama." Silence. "I'm sorry," Amara said. Her mother's voice was cold. "What do you want?" "I want to come home." "Do you know what you've done?" "Yes." "Do you think it's that easy?" "No." "Then come. But don't expect hugs." Amara came home late that night. She didn't enter the house. She slept outside on a bench. No one told her to move. The next morning, she entered the kitchen and began washing plates quietly. Her mother passed her without speaking. Her father didn't look her way. China remained in her room. But something had shifted. Amara was no longer smiling, no longer proud. She was learning what pain felt like. That night, China wrote another letter. But this time it wasn't for Ibuka. It wasn't for Amara. It was for herself. "Dear me, you walked into fire and came out alive. You told the truth when you could have hidden. You chose peace over pain. You did not lose. You found your voice, and that voice will carry you to better days." The rainy season came early that year. Thunder rolled across the sky as water fell from the clouds. Trees danced in the wind. The air was cold and smelled like wet earth. China sat by the window watching the rain. A cup of warm tea rested in her hands. Her face looked calm now. Not happy, not sad, just peaceful. It had been 2 weeks since the ruined wedding. 2 long, quiet weeks. Her life had changed, but her soul had survived. In those 2 weeks, Amara had become a shadow in the house. She no longer wore makeup. She no longer posted on Instagram. She no longer raised her voice. She woke up early, cleaned, cooked, swept, ate last. But China hadn't spoken to her. Not once. Amara kept her distance. She never entered China's room. She never sat where China sat. She never looked her in the eyes. Until that morning. China had just finished folding her bedsheets when she heard a soft knock. She opened the door slowly. Amara stood there holding something. It was a white envelope. "I wrote you something," Amara said quietly, her voice shaky. "Please read it when you're ready." China said nothing. She took the envelope, nodded once, and shut the door. She didn't open it right away. She placed it on the table and sat beside it, staring at it like it might explode. She waited for an hour, then 2. Then finally, she opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. The paper was wrinkled, and the words looked like they had been written through tears. "China, I don't deserve to speak to you. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I needed to say these things. You were always the better one. Better heart. Better mind. Better sister. I was jealous. I hated that you were calm and everyone loved you. I hated that Ibuka loved you, even when he was with me. It started as a mistake. But then I kept doing it. And when you found out, I thought you would scream. Fight me. Break everything. But you didn't. You stood there and you waited. And you gave me something I never expected. Shame. Not by words, but by truth. You showed the world who I really was. And now, I see it too. I want you to know that I am sorry. Not because the world saw me, but because I lost the one person who always loved me no matter what. You. If you never speak to me again, I will understand. But if one day you find a small place in your heart, just a tiny corner where I can sit quietly, I will be grateful. I love you, Amara. China folded the letter slowly. Her chest felt heavy. She stood up, walked to her window, and let the wind touch her face. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stood there, breathing. Later that night, Amara sat alone in the kitchen, picking beans. The room was silent except for the soft sound of seeds falling into a bowl. Then she heard footsteps. China entered. She didn't say anything. She just sat opposite her and took another bowl. Together, in silence, they picked beans. After a while, Amara whispered, "Thank you." China replied, "Don't thank me yet." They didn't hug. They didn't cry. But for the first time in weeks, they sat side by side. 3 days later, China received a letter in the mail. This one was from Ibuka. She had ignored his first 2 letters, but this one was different. It was sent through a lawyer, not for trouble but for release. Inside was an apology letter and a signed statement that returned all the bride price and declared the wedding officially canceled. The letter was short. "I failed you. I accept my shame. But I will never forget the strength you showed. You were the wife I didn't deserve. May your future be bright, even if it has nothing to do with me." China read it twice. Then she lit a match and burned it. The next Sunday she went to church, alone. She wore a simple dress and sat at the back. When the service ended, people whispered. Some clapped. Some hugged her. A few came to apologize for not seeing the truth earlier. But China wasn't there for any of that. She just wanted peace. The priest came to her after service. He said, "You look lighter." She nodded. "I feel it too." He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You are free." 2 weeks later, China packed a small bag and traveled to Oka. She stayed in her cousin's house, close to a teaching hospital. She registered for a 1-month emotional healing and personal growth program. It was run by a woman who had once walked away from her own wedding 10 years ago. At the center, China met women who had survived pain. A woman whose husband married a second wife without telling her. A woman whose best friend stole her job. A woman who was left at the altar. And another who still went through with her wedding, knowing her groom was cheating. They shared stories. They cried. They laughed. They healed. One day, the counselor asked China, "What do you want now?" China thought deeply, then said, "I want a life that is real. No secrets. No lies. Just real love. Even if it takes years to find." The woman smiled. "You'll find it. And when you do, you'll know it's safe." By the time China returned home, she looked different. Still quiet. Still calm. But something in her eyes had changed. They now held wisdom, not just from books, but from surviving heartbreak. Amara had started a baking business from the back of the house. She no longer posted selfies. She no longer tried to show off. One evening, she knocked softly on China's door. "I made banana bread," she said. "Want some?" China opened the door. They shared the bread quietly, sipping tea. Then Amara asked, "Do you hate me?" China shook her head. "No." Amara looked down. "Do you still love me?" China was quiet. Then she said, "Yes, but it will take time." Amara nodded, eyes filling with tears. "I'll wait." Months passed. China got a transfer to a better school in Succa. She packed her things, said goodbye to her family, and moved. Her new apartment was small, but cozy. She filled it with books, flowers, and peace. She taught again. She smiled again. She slept better. One Saturday morning, while buying tomatoes at the market, a young man helped her carry her basket. He was polite, gentle. They walked a short distance together. "My name is Obina," he said. "China," she replied. He smiled. Beautiful name. She smiled too, not because she liked him yet, but because she didn't feel fear. Back in her new home, she sat at her table and began writing another letter. But this time it wasn't to herself, or to Amara, or to Ibuka. It was to the future. Dear future, I don't know your face yet. I don't know your hands, or your laugh, or your name. But I'll wait for you, because I've learned that true love doesn't hide. It doesn't lie. It doesn't betray. And when it comes softly, like rain. I am not broken anymore. I am healing. And when we meet, I'll be whole. China and I,